This video is for people who already know they're going through some type of spiritual awakening process and are wondering why they've been so exhausted lately. This is going to be a deep dive into the several different reasons why people who are going through a spiritual awakening, especially the empathic folks, experience fatigue. Most importantly, this video is also going to share with you what I've learned in the last 20 years of my life, going through this myself, that have helped me make a tremendous difference in my energy. My day-to-day energy now at 42 years old is more than when I was in my 20s. And even though it's been kind of a long road to get here, and I found myself maybe like you, flustered, confused, even frustrated why this fatigue that comes out of nowhere is just bringing me down in my life, what I found is most of the time there's a good reason for it and a worthwhile corresponding benefit to the fatigue. The fatigue is oftentimes a messenger, and it's guiding you to make positive changes in your life or even your mindset, maybe your relationships. And I believe when you have a fuller understanding about the many different causes of this awakening related fatigue and also what you can do starting today to make a huge difference in your energy levels, that it's going to be an absolute game changer for you. So anyways, welcome to my YouTube channel, my friends. My name is Victor Oddo, and I'll see you now inside the video. One of the reasons has to do with misalignment. Here I'll discuss a few of the most common types of misalignment, and I trust you'll relate to pretty much every single one. But the foundational reasoning for this is that you are growing so quickly. You are growing out of your life circumstance, maybe a relationship, maybe the way you carry yourself in your life, your daily habits, the things you bring into your body may have been fine at one point, but you're not that same person anymore. You've changed, you've grown, and all of a sudden, whether you like it or not, your nervous system is responding to the misaligned circumstance. I remember what comes to mind for me as a life situation was a career. The career that I chose, a career that I loved, a career that for the longest time gave me, just lit me up. And that was growing medical marijuana, believe it or not. In Michigan, before it was cool, I grew medical marijuana. And I will never forget the first time I laid eyes upon a grow room. It was my friends were growing in their apartment. They like decked out one of their spare bedrooms, and it was like this whole grow room, and I've never seen anything like that before. They were growing hydroponically. So if you've ever seen a hydroponic grow room, there's kind of a lot going on. They had like all these tubes and lights and reservoirs and different nutrient solutions, and they even had this cool TDS meter that they put into the solution. And it was like they're mad scientists growing these really healthy looking cannabis plants. And I remember when they told me about it, I was a little bit skeptical because I thought, you know what? I don't think you guys should be doing it. It's risky, it's illegal. But once I opened that door and was blinded by the light, so to speak, and literally I saw that room, and something in me was just like, hell yeah, this is super, super awesome. And then I grew kind of off and on for a few years, and eventually I had a really nice grow room in my basement, and it was earning me money. It was something that was fun. But all of a sudden, around this time, I felt this calling, this like unshakable feeling / knowing that is as exciting as the grow thing is, there's something else my soul wants to do. My intuition was screaming at me to let go of the grow room. It's not who you are anymore. There's no judgment. There's nothing wrong with it, but you have other things to do in this lifetime. And lingering around in a chapter you've already closed, it's not going to cut it. My mind could not accept that, so I continued to grow, even though every time I walked down into that grow room, I felt this pit, this inner conflict, because deep down I knew I shouldn't be doing this. This is no longer me. But regardless, we tend to do that oftentimes. In fact, Joseph Campbell talks about that, resisting the call. You right now might be watching this and have this knowing to do something, but you're kind of like suppressing it, keeping it at bay. It scares you, it feels premature, etc. And if you relate with me, you might be finding yourself right now lingering around in an old career, an old situation, an old house, an old neighborhood, an old whatever. And you know it's time to move on, but you don't know what that looks like. So in the meantime, you stay. But what happens when you stay in a circumstance, in an environment that is no longer a reflection of the true you that has now emerged onto the scene, you will feel resistance. You will feel resistance almost any time you go there. And you will find yourself, if not during, definitely afterwards, feeling exhausted. Is because your nervous system is saying no to a situation your mind is insisting on doing. And what I found is there's no fighting it. But the most important thing to take from this is, instead of drinking more caffeine or doing what most people do to boost their energy, you ask yourself, why am I fatigued in the first place? Your body and your nervous system is always seeking harmony. It's always seeking balance. And when it's in balance, there's plenty of energy to go around. Not too much, not too little, a balanced amount. And many times this fatigue is saying there's something out of balance. And this is a way you can become aware of that. Easier said than done though, right? I get it, trust me. That's why I held on to the grow for so dang long, because it was like, Spirit wants me to make a drastic career change. I don't think so. Also difficult with a relationship. Sometimes you will grow or change, or they will grow and change. And just like that life circumstance, what was once in alignment, you might find yourself drained either during or afterwards. You'll start to notice this subtly at first. You'll notice the person's impact on you. You'll notice maybe just a fundamental difference in outlooks on life. Especially if you're like on the up and up and you have people in your life who are not really growing and are kind of like, like negative, judgmental, victim. They're really like attracted to drama and chaos, and even sometimes they might not even be discussing topics that happen to be something you don't care to discuss. It's more of just the energy they're putting out and the frequency they're like consistently in. You could be sitting there in silence sometimes next to someone who's in kind of a bad mood, or just like you know what I'm trying to say here. I'm not trying not to be too judgmental, because life is freaking hard and it's not easy. And we all have those times in our life, but sometimes people get stuck chronically in like a victim mindset. And then as a growing empath, a growing light worker, someone who's doing the work, doing the purging, doing the healing, looking at themselves, really hungry to get the most out of life, you'll find that your energy cannot stand that mentality for very long. And you will feel drained. They will drain you. This one will be very obvious. When you're around them, you feel your life force, your battery running out. And you might even feel like the fatigue continues to affect you even afterwards. Not only the fatigue, but you also might find that you start entraining to their mood. You start seeing things in a cynical way, and you realize, this isn't me. Why am I doing this? Why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? Well, it's because your environment has a profound effect on your body and your nervous system, even if your mind is blocking them out, or, distracting itself with other thoughts while they're going off on some rant. It doesn't matter. Your body is taking all of it in. And what the fatigue is telling you is it's you've grown. It's time to set a boundary. It's time to create some space. It's time to move on. Or maybe it's time to have a conversation. That's always an option. Marcus Aurelius talks about this. He talks about, if you don't like someone's attitude, if you don't like what they're doing, if you don't like what they're saying about you, for one, don't be surprised when people do that, because that's what people do. A fig will be a fig, is something like that, he says. But he says, if you're so keen on disagreeing with this person's perspective, try to help them. Why not maybe share what you've been learning, what's been working for you? in a compassionate, non-judgmental way. Now that's the key. You ought to be doing this. It doesn't work. But if you can share like, hey, listen, I've been doing breath work and meditation, and my God, I feel so much happier. Have you ever tried it? Do you want to try some right now? That's at least something you can offer. Now, many people are not going to want to do that, and that's also okay. But the simple fact is, unless you either help them up level or create some type of space, the fatigue's not going to go away on its own. When you continue to go in an environment in the presence of somebody who has a very incompatible energy. And I know sometimes this can bring up guilt. Well, you know what, Dick? I know it's easier said than done because this is someone that depends on me. They need me. This is a close friend of mine. What are they going to think? They're going to think I don't like them. They're going to think I don't love them anymore. How tragic is that? Maybe they need that. You know, one of the worst things a concerned loved one can do with an addict is not tell them how they feel, is give them money, give them shelter, give them clothes, help them out. That's the worst thing because that's enabling someone to do something that is self-destructive. And while in the moment, it's sometimes an abrupt, painful conversation. Hey, I can't be around you anymore because you're always freaking negative. I love you, but I'm not going to come around and gossip and complain all day. If it exhausts me. I'd love to be around you and discuss something else. Let's go for a walk in the park. Let's go to the gym. Let's go to a concert. And if they get offended, that might be the wake-up call they need. We all learn this way sometimes. You and I are not above it. I've had it, I get it all the time on YouTube. People say, in fact, this video is actually a reason for that. Someone politely said recently, you know what, Vic, your videos are great, man, but I'd like something a little bit deeper. I noticed a lot of the YouTubers in this space, they kind of stay on the surface. And being a YouTuber, I know why. These kind of videos, they don't really go anywhere, unfortunately. I'll probably get like 1,000 views compared to 30,000. I'm going to try it anyway. But the point is, someone said something. It kind of stung initially because it was like even though it was polite, it was like a criticism, like, hey, you should be doing this for your videos. But here I am. I actually agreed with that assessment, even though I didn't feel good in the absolute instant of like discovering that sort of that criticism. I appreciate it, and I will choose to do something constructive with it. Now, not everyone's going to do that, but at least it's an option. Sometimes it's a lot simpler than severing ties with a long-standing relationship or making a drastic career switch or quitting your job and going into the unknown. A lot of times it's like lay off the freaking ice cream at night. Or I think you've smoked enough weed for a lifetime. Maybe you're good. Maybe you've experienced all the different lessons from the cannabis plant. That was me for both, guilty of both. You know, when something's not out of alignment, it'll affect you differently. For example, when I started smoking cannabis at a very young age, which I don't recommend, and I definitely don't think that's ideal. But even back then, man, it helped me. I was in high school, actually junior high, very young. But anyways, it helped me break out of it helped me kind of question authority, I would say. Prior to that, I was like a good kid, kind of rebellious at heart, but for the most part, I stayed in line. Smoking cannabis almost right away caused me to start realizing that just because you're an adult doesn't mean you know exactly how life works. Doesn't mean you have my best interest at heart. Doesn't mean I need to listen to you. So I started to kind of rebel against conventional thinking in general, which I'm very happy about because I think that's an important thing to come into your own power. It also was fun. Even once in a while, to this day, it helps me kind of stay in the moment. It's good to do on a day off. But there was a time when I was smoking it so often, so habitually, that it was getting in the way of these like emerging aspirations. Like at one point it was okay, but now it's like, now I have goals, now I have children, now I have a purpose to seize and fulfill. And as much as many benefits the cannabis had for me, all of a sudden it's not working for me anymore. It's causing me to feel too tired to do anything, too unmotivated, too lethargic. And it's not the fatigue that's the problem. It's that I'm doing something, I'm ingesting something that no longer is helping me more than it's hurting me. There's no judgment, there's no problem. And I've gone through the list. I've gone through, like, I've had to clean up my diet, I've had to clean up my habits. I don't watch TV before bed. I have kind of like a strict way of living now, just because over the years my nervous system decided at some point it's fed up with this, that, or the other, and my initial symptom was fatigue, exhaustion. I'd watch freaking 3 episodes of Sopranos before bed, and I'd wake up even after sleeping a long time, exhausted. Just like something's off. What is it? Is it the full moon? No. You're watching too much damn TV before bed. And yeah, when you're 18 years old, it was no big deal. But now you're an adult. Now it is. Now you have a lot going on. You got to preserve your energy. So it's like, as we change, as we grow, as you change and grow, you will probably oftentimes find that you have to kind of up level your habits so that they are supporting you rather than draining you. Another whole category is purging. This is a bit more passive. You know, the misalignment is more like you're in control. The fatigue is sometimes there to show you that you're making choices that are working against you. The purge is a little bit different. This is something that you'll find even if you're living like a freaking monk. You're going to find yourself probably at times being exhausted because you're purging old beliefs, old programs, old energy. Unexpressed, unhealed, unconscious pockets of dense emotional energy will sometimes find their way, making themselves up to the surface. And it's not this quick thing. It's like a slow, it like creeps up to the surface. You know, when something in your unconscious is boiling, bubbling up, you might start to feel just anxious. You will probably start to feel exhausted because there's like this dissonant energy now and becoming conscious, and it can kind of put you in like a bit of a fight or flight type of mentality. And some of you who are really introspective, I'm like that as well. You'll start to immediately investigate. What is this? Where is this coming from? What needs to be healed? But if you've noticed, like, it can take some time. Like, you could try your best, you can meditate for 2 hours and you still won't know because it's not conscious enough yet. But slowly but surely it will come up. And when it comes up, that'll even be more exhausting because now it temporarily will oftentimes take you over. Now it's here. Now you're playing it out. You kind of fallen back unconscious, and this energy is like almost like living through you, wreaking havoc in whatever key area of your life is causing you problems at this point. And then there'll still be a subtle glimmer of awareness where you know you're doing this. You know, like, oh my God, I'm acting from this old pattern. But it's got such a momentum and such a strength and such a presence, it's very difficult to resist. And even when you try, that also will exhaust you. So it's not only is it the initial concern that something's coming, but that usually will turn into, again, where it takes you over, and the whole experience is exhausting. Even the breakthrough. What happens after a while? You finally have an insight. You create like enough distance from it. You see it for what it is. And just as quickly as it came, it's eventually gone. And you're free. You had a breakthrough. Now you feel really clear, really tapped in, really free. And then you get exhausted. And then you crash after that. There's like the integration period. This happens all the time when I drink ayahuasca or when I do my somatic breath work. Oftentimes it'll condense what I just said in a matter of hours, and I'll go through the whole gamut, resulting in a profound, enlightening breakthrough that brings temporary energy. Like, you all of a sudden, in absence of that, whatever you purged, you have all this life force energy. But that will also tire you out. So my point is just to become aware of this. This is something that just will happen sometimes. A lot of the times it'll happen when you're seeking it out. Like a month ago, I did 3 deep holotropic style breathwork sessions in a row. In a matter of like 2 weeks, I did 3 big sessions. And I fried my system, basically. Got a lot of work done, a lot of healing. Now, sometimes, again, this will happen without you trying to do anything. especially around full moons and eclipses, and also astrologically significant times of your own like life path. You'll find that you go through these types of purges and shifts. It's just something to be aware of, something to accept. There's not much you can do about it, honestly. And the more you try to do, the more you try to control, the more you try to understand, that just adds unnecessary energy to the mix. The best thing to do is, as best you can, it's not easy, but as best you can, just accept it. Okay. I must be going through another healing contraction-like period, and this too shall pass. I'll try to stay as neutral as possible for the duration. This fatigue will also come in when you're having a major energetic growth spurt. You know, people who are experiencing more like chi energy, more spiritual, where you feel like you're being spiritually activated. You might find that you have, like, at least initially, a lot of energy, a lot of like life force flowing through you. Kundalini can be another word for this type of like life force energy. And on one hand, it's very exhilarating. It's very like, but it's very activating. And what goes up must come down. And you might find that you kind of oscillate between periods of feeling like better than ever, younger, more springy than ever, and times where you feel like you've just aged 50 years and you have no idea why. You're achy, you're just tired, you're fatigued, your mind is like burnt out, and it's just like, oh man. Now what I've learned is this one, there is wiggle room. The purging ones, I haven't mastered, to be honest. It throws me off most of the time, because usually it's something you suppressed and there's a reason you did that and it's uncomfortable and you resist it. And that's one as a work in progress. Now, I have seen tremendous improvements with this. I've learned to leave a little gas in the tank. I used to call this being high on spirit, when you're just feeling the force of the cosmos at your back, inspiring you, motivating you. Lots of creative downloads are coming and you're like, you feel amazing. I've learned not to do that. I've learned not to like get swept away with it, because, and Carl Jung talks about this. He talks about in a different way. He talks about the collective archetypes, these like signature, pronounced like attitudes, perspectives. Like, for example, like there's the warrior. All of us are said, at least by Carl Jung, to have an element of the warrior in us. And that's good. There's times when you need to tap into your warrior self, is there not? But what he said about the archetypes, and this is something that probably happens to all of you, when they start to kind of, whatever they are, that's a whole other discussion. You know, Carl Jung believed the archetypes to be actual, like, conscious, but sort of like specific representations of like, again, ideas, attitudes, perspectives, etc. But they're usually like kind of one side. Like the warrior is the baddest ass warrior you can imagine, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the end all be all. That's just one perspective, right? So anyways, what I'm saying is, like, you might feel influence from something like this energy, but it's not the end all be all. It requires kind of like a patience, because these archetypes, as Carl Jung said, will kind of take you over. And all of a sudden you're battling battles that don't need to be fought. You're arguing, you become like way over the top with this one perspective. I'm trying my best to bridge that to just the fundamental increase of spirit energy that can flow through you. It's great. It feels good. It's very creative, very expansive. You feel very confident. You feel like you can do anything, move mountains. But if you indulge in that too much, you will burn out big time. You also might find that you make sloppy decisions as well. And this is like, this growth spurt is good. It's like you finally have access to greater quantities of your own frequency, your own soul's essence. Great, no problem. But it requires mindfulness, temperance, almost like a healthy neutrality and detachment, and the knowing this is not the end all be all. This would happen all the time when my friends and I would run ayahuasca retreats. After 3 days in a row of drinking ayahuasca, you feel this massive, like, yeah, growth spurt. And we'd be together sometimes, in particular my friend Aaron Dowdy, we're also business partners. And we'd have these like business ideas, these downloads, and we'd be like, yeah, let's do it, We'd be gung-ho, and we'd get back to the States and we kind of like ground in a little bit, and all of a sudden we realized like this was not very well thought out. It's like this energy, like those archetypes, has almost like an agenda, but you're the conscious presence that gets to decide to what degree do you interact with this type of thing. Long story short, what goes up must come down. The more neutral you can stay on those spiritual highs, the more neutral you can stay on those spiritual lows, and the less severe they will be. And I say this from someone who used to just completely indulge in this type of frequency. And I would burn out so hardcore where I would have times where like I couldn't even do anything. I'd be like in my early 20s, like literally like going to the grocery store would take it out of me for days because I had such a lack of awareness and mastery over these types of powerful type of energies and dynamics. So leave a little gas in the tank and you can spare yourself a lot of this fatigue you might be dealing with right now. Now, something that also kind of inspired this video, aside from the healthy criticism I've received, is just modern living. This is something I'm noticing right now. I'm noticing that we could like, say hypothetically, we master this stuff. I think what's happening now is and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Leave a comment below if you're feeling this. A lot of the sensitive souls, a lot of the people who have been doing a lot of the inner work, one, are feeling exhausted, and partially it's because of the life you find yourself in, the modern living. My mom and dad they're retired and they just went to Italy. And they were telling me about these cool little towns they visited. One of them, I forgot the name, they said it was like a fishing town, this real quiet fishing town where everybody was like either like a laborer or a fisherman. And like everybody kind of worked with their hands and worked with the land. She said everyone drove really, really small cars. And it wasn't like super, flashy and nice like the States. Everything's big and new and, kind of over the top. She said it was very like quaint almost. But she said the people were just so happy. They were just so full of life, full of spirit, because they didn't buy into this American dream, which is not only in America, as you know, this sort of industrialization and westernization of how modern living is absolutely exhausting so many people. Just right now, if you go on your phone, I'm not above it, and you look at your screen time, and if you understand what staring at a very bright blue light with all these different things does to your nervous system, right there in and of itself, it makes it very difficult to not be fatigued. Not even considering how this affects our sleep and how important sleep is. The average American sleeps way less than they should. And when you chronically undersleep, you are asking for fatigue. You're asking for trouble. That's leaving out just the fact that you might have to go to a job and work very hard beyond your natural capacity to uphold a life that you don't even need for happiness. Like those Italians, they saw the writing on the wall. They said, I don't care if my house is 3,000 square feet. I don't need landscapers and all this stuff. I'd rather live simply, have plenty of energy, and live a good life. In fact, there's this thing I watched on Netflix a while ago about the blue zones. A blue zone is, I think there are 5 of them across the world. They're these little locations where the life expectancy is much longer than the norm, the average. And one of them is in Italy. And the interesting thing there is like all the people in this little town, they drink alcohol, they drink wine, they eat freaking pasta all the time. It's not like they're, doing red light therapy and meditating and doing all this crazy, these biohacking things. And that's why they're living long. No. But you want to know what the hypothesis is? How they can be living longer than most people in spite of their diet and the fact they drink alcohol all the time? There's a few reasons. One of them is exercise, but the other one is community. They live as they are connected. when you're connected with other people, it gives you energy. I feel this even going to my martial arts class. I go to almost every day and I train very hard. And I can never train that hard at my house. And it's not because of the fact that there's a trainer there, it's because there are other people. Somehow there's like this synergy when human beings get together and work together and even laugh and hang out and drink wine together. There's a shared life force that few of us have. So many of our relationships are digital now. We don't tap into that person's presence as much. I could go on and on and on and on and on about like why. But what I feel in my own life, I'd be curious about you guys, is I'm finding myself wondering, how can I get out of this? How can there's a sense of feeling kind of trapped in it. Like, this is what everybody does. This is what I've been doing my whole life. I have like a very big, intense life situation to kind of uphold. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, how can I find a way to kind of like, not escape, like just go and, live in a cave, but kind of like, where's the middle ground? For example, one of the things I'm considering doing is like buying a much smaller house. Like I'm a big fan of mixed martial arts, and I saw this documentary about Ronda Rousey. She was one of the biggest female fighters in the world ever. And she's worth like $15 million, but she lives in this very modest little home with her family on this farm. They like work on a farm. And I thought, interesting. I thought that was very inspiring, because it's like she also saw what I think a lot of us are seeing. So you might find this happening in your own way. Some people are becoming like embracing minimalism. Some people are truly ditching like everything and going and living in a van or something, which is, I did the same thing with the travel trailer. But I think what needs to happen is change. And I think it's going to start with the sensitive nervous systems who are like the life situation. Life is out of alignment. Now, what do we do? I don't know. That's something I'm still figuring out. I'd be curious. What have you done? What have you thought about doing to help kind of counterbalance the exhausting nature of modern living? I would be fascinated to know. Maybe we can kind of work together on this. I think about it every day, to be honest. Like, what could I do? How could I change this? How can I give my children maybe a different example so they don't fall into the same trap? But the point is, this is like the collective awakening. This exhaustion is a symptom, in my opinion, in my observation, of a much bigger thing happening. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you first wake up and you realize, sorry, I keep looking at the time. I got to go in a second. It's tough when you wake up and you realize you're kind of trapped. But you're never really trapped. There's always a way out. And I think like the struggle, the exhaustion is a compelling enough motivation to help us figure out what we can do differently, how we can live differently, more simply. So again, please, if you could, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you're up to. Okay, as promised, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and share with you some things you can do that will make a big difference in your day-to-day energy levels. Things that it took me 20 years of trial and error to finally discover. Okay, my friend, before I go, I'm going to now share with you a few things that I have learned make a huge difference in my energy. And I'm going to spare you of the basics. Obviously, eating healthy foods, getting enough sleep, yada, yada, you know that. I don't need to waste your time with like the commonsensical ones. These other ones are a little bit, I would say like a different perspective on energy that I think might be something you either haven't heard or haven't heard that often. Okay? So the first one is actually a principle of Tantra, which goes a lot deeper than just like sexual techniques. This is more of like a philosophy for life. And there's one principle in particular that has always stuck with me. And that is only use as much energy that is necessary for the given task. Now, this seems like common sense. You might say to yourself, of course, I always do that. I don't waste energy, but we do. And if you don't believe me, tune into your body right now and look very closely at your energy and see if you can detect any unnecessary tension. I can feel some in my stomach right now. I actually feel pretty relaxed in this moment. But normally when I do this throughout the day, I notice I will be like tense up here. I will oftentimes, especially in certain circumstances, like social settings, I will be very uptight for no reason. I'm safe. I can be around people I know very well and trust, but I will be on guard. A lot of times we waste energy on thinking about something that we can't do anything about. Even if you notice the way you move throughout your day, the way you kind of carry yourself and go from room to room and walk around, you'll find that there's unnecessary tension. Like you're in a rush. You ever notice that you're like rushing around? What are you rushing to do? Where are you really trying to get? It's just the nature of the fragmented ego is usually in a state of futile attempts to control the externals of life instead of flowing with it. And this is something that is extremely difficult to master. This is something I do not claim to have mastered. But if you can start to practice being mindful and using only as much energy as needed, you will free up a ton of energy by not wasting it. And you will then have it, obviously, for things that matter to you. Another big one is perspective. Keeping you and your life and your quote unquote problems in the proper perspective. Every morning and every night, for the most part, for years, I've read out of this very same book, this Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. He's a really wise Roman emperor from like almost 2,000 years ago. And this was a diary he wrote as like notes to self. Note to self, keep life in perspective. And I'll just read you a quick little line out of the book that just I happened to read this morning that is a perfect example of why this can be so helpful. He says, "Do not waste the remaining part of your life in thoughts about other people when you are not thinking with reference to some aspect of the common good. Why deprive yourself of the time for some other task? Thinking about what so-and-so is doing and why, what he is saying or contemplating or plotting, and all that line of thought makes you stray from the close watch on your own directing mind." He's saying it's pointless to worry about what people are thinking. and yet, how often do we do that? I tried a new YouTube video with the whiteboard. I wonder how people are going to like it, as an example. There's lots and lots of gems in this book, and of course, many other spiritual, religious texts, books of wisdom. And, thinking like this is like not the common way of thinking. You go into the office, you go into the workplace, people aren't thinking about that. They're not discussing just how fast life goes and how pointless it is to waste time and energy worrying about things you can't control. This is also not how my mind naturally works. My mind is much more likely to worry, to stress out, to try to control, to ruminate unnecessarily about the same freaking problem. So this type of thinking for me does not come naturally. But the more I practice it, especially when I can start and end the day with it, I can literally feel my body calming down because it rings true to me. I recommend finding a book that just rings true to you, that has a calming effect on your nervous system because something in your soul knows it's like the highest truth. We are eternal. Life is short. Our job here is to be a good person, do our best. And when we kind of remind ourselves of these like simple, like ancient truths, it eliminates a lot of unnecessary energy expenditure. And the final one I want to leave you with is also practicing self-acceptance. I wasted so much energy in the first decade or more of my spiritual awakening trying to become enlightened, trying to heal all of my traumas, trying to shift my identity. All these spiritual pursuits were, in a sense, subtle forms of resistance to who I am in the here and now, which is not enlightened, not perfectly healed, not where I might be 100 lifetimes from now. And when I resist and sometimes almost deny and suppress like who I am now, my imperfect self, that is a lot of tension. That is a lot of resistance. And I'll give an example. A while back, like, I don't know, maybe like almost 10 years ago, I had decided I was going to fast for the full moon. And it was a very intellectual thing that came to me. It was not something I felt called to do. I just thought, oh, this is going to help advance me type of mentality. And it was such a denial of where I was at and what was actually in alignment for me that day that it created a tremendous amount of exhaustion and a tremendous amount of resistance. And I remember the nighttime rolled around and I was living in the camper, our travel trailer home at the time, and the family started eating food. And even to tempt me more, my wife cracked open a nice bottle of red wine. And I had like nowhere to go. I was just sitting in this freaking camper, just watching them eat, watching Pattie like enjoy her wine. And I said to myself, nope, you're going to fast. It's what you chose to do. And I became so fatigued, not because of the lack of food, but because I was like forcing myself out of the flow. And not only was I tired, but I became very irritable. I was like a miserable prick, to be honest, in my camper. And here I am, the spiritual elitist fasting, and these the rest of the family just eating their food and drinking wine. I was like judging them, and it was like this super spiritual, ego, grouchy type of thing that I was creating. And I realized eventually, thank God, that what I was doing was not a high vibration thing. It was an act of denial of where I was. And where I was a guy who worked his butt off all day and wanted to enjoy a meal with his family and have a glass of wine. And you know what? I eventually allowed myself to do that. And of course, I felt better from eating and having a glass of wine. But I could feel in my body immediately a shift because I finally yielded to where I was in the here and now, which is not a perfect person, someone who still enjoyed wine at the time. And I felt myself kind of like snap back into alignment by accepting where I was. I see a lot of seekers make the same mistake I did, kind of stressing themselves out, wasting energy by trying to either kind of run away from themselves, honestly. But what if you just accepted yourself right here, right now, your past, where you are? I know there's more to work on. There's things you'd like to do that you haven't yet. What if you could just accept that this is where you are, regardless? This is who you are. This is where you are right in the here and now. How does that feel in your body? When you practice using as much energy that is necessary, and you keep your life and your problems in perspective, and you accept yourself for who you are, you will be shocked at how much energy you free up. These are the things that have genuinely made a difference in my life, because this makes my mindset a lot more healthy and grounded. And what this naturally will do, you will find yourself naturally wanting to maintain that. You'll find that you will naturally choose to maybe meditate each day, get to bed early. You will naturally gravitate towards healthier foods. And from this sort of foundational mindset, you will start to naturally change your life, not because you need to get a handle on your energy, not because some YouTuber told you to, but because it feels good when you do these few things and you want to maintain this good feeling. So it took me about 15 years to learn all this, my friends. So hopefully I can spare you of some of that time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this type of video. It is definitely a task to get out the whiteboard. But if you all like it and appreciate it, I'm happy to do it from time to time. But let me know your honest thoughts. Thank you so much. Peace.